Hey Mike, I'm putting this together because why it's top of my mind, I might as well try to explain this. So this system comes from, unfortunately, mobile games, because mobile games have kind of solved this exact problem about how do we make something attainable over a long period of time, because the whole point of mobile games is player retention. So how do we get people hooked to play the game for hundreds of hours instead of a handful of hours? And one of the big systems and one of the largest mobile games out there in a game called Summoner's War is how they do their evolution of actually leveling up the characters within the game. And this is seen throughout almost all mobile games, which is you take the item and then you have to take duplicates of that item to enhance the item into the next tier. So in this example, we have a red ring 1 LP. Well, if we want to make a red ring 2 LP, then we would need 5 red ring 1 LPs on top of the red ring 1 LP we already have. So 6 total to generate one 2 LP ring. Then what you would do is you would then take the 2 LP ring, you would put it back in the system, but when the 2 LP happens, then you would want to, let me just put this on fill. We'll take these out. Then for the 2 LP, you would need 3 2 LPs like this, plus the 2 LP that you made, so 2 additional ones, which means that you would potentially have to make 4 different 2 LP rings. You would need 24 1 LP red rings to then generate one 3 LP ring. And then once you generate the one 3 LP ring, so if this was 3 LP now, as an example, you would move the 3 LP up and then you would get rid of the remainders. So we would go back in and we would take these out like so. And then you would generate your 4 LP. So this would be a 3 LP, another 3 LP red ring, which means that you'd have to make 2 different 3 LP rings or find 2 3 LP rings. The more likely situation is you'd have to make 2 3 LP red rings to then generate a 4 LP ring. So at the end of this, this would be a 4 LP, which at that point, I think, what would that be? That would be 48, I think it is. I think it's 48 1 LP red rings that you would need in a season to generate one 4 LP red ring. Now, you can still keep the probability of getting a 4 LP from a drop in the game, that's fine. But giving people at least a system where their time investment in the game and their ability to use like the Weaver tree system and Rune of Ascendancies to try to get the rings different ways could still, if they put in enough time within a 3 to 4 month seasonal window, generate a single 4 LP red ring. And that's just one 4 LP. If they wanted to do that for their helmet, for their chest, for their gloves, for their boots, you can see where this now takes a tremendous amount of time investment. Now, you could combine it with maybe you found some 2 LPs and that saves you a little bit of time from having to manually craft them, which exponentially gives time off of this creation window to create the 4 LP. But at the end of the day, by that 4 month window, there's the potential that someone may actually be able to achieve these 4 LP rings. Now, again, you can still keep the 1 in 4 trillion chance it drops naturally. That's fine. I mean, realistically, that ring doesn't exist. That will be one of those in all of our lifetimes that we'll actually see. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not unobtainable anymore. There's actually a system where you could actually achieve getting to this point without having to just hope and pray before you die you get a single one season in your life. So I think giving people at least the option where if they put in the investment and they put in the time and they put in, the hours staying within Last Epoch, that they're not spending their time in any other game, they're actually playing Last Epoch and keeping the player count and the player retention up, which also is more than likely that that person will also spend money within the game that they're spending hundreds of hours in, is a great way to obviously keep your game and your development studio alive. And again, this is how mobile games work. This is how they solve this issue. Is they're saying, hey, getting a 6-star S tier character, whatever, isn't unobtainium, but it will require you to spend 100 hours within the game. So this system is proven. Like, you can look at many, many different mobile games, AFK Arena, Summoner's War, there's many of them that use this exact system where there's a tiering scale where you can actually achieve the ultimate goal. But you can also, in mobile games, you can also get lucky and, within your ticket pools or whatever it is, your 10 pools that you do, you could obtain that 6-star naturally. But it's super rare, right? And then you also can factor in that just getting a red ring to drop from its base, just the base drop chance, let alone the LP added, chance to drop, can already be a lottery. So you don't have to get rid of the lottery like, oh my god, I got a red ring drop. That still can be naturally good, but at least the top tier of the item isn't completely unobtainium, and then it gives people a reason to also keep hunting for these items. Like, keep saying, okay, I'm going to keep generating more red rings. Now, the one negative is, and I think you had brought this up, I think a while back, is a system like this also somewhat disincentivizes people to actually use the LP, to actually go to Julra and say, hey, I'm going to use my LP to, add an affix on it and wear the item, which it kind of does because you need that. The circumstance that you could do there is you could make it where if someone uses the LP, it doesn't make it irrelevant to this system. And what I mean by that is, if this was let's say we're back on like the 2LP section. Hold on, if we were like here, right? Let's say one of these 2LPs had already been used and I had rolled melee damage and physical damage, hypothetical. Like, let's say I had used the LP, melee damage and physical damage. Well, the ring itself could still be flagged in the system as a 2LP ring, even though it's been used. So it can still be sacrificed during the 2LP upgrade. So that way it doesn't disincentivize people to actually go and use the rings for the 2LP. They can go use them, and at that level the system still knows, okay, that was a 2LP, there's 2 affixes on the actual piece of gear. That ring can still be sacrificed at the 2LP level. It will still count as a 2LP sacrifice even if it's used. So that way you don't actually subvert your systems that are in the game now, which will stop people from being disincentivized to actually use the system on both fronts, being able to slam and then coming into a system like this and being like, okay, I have the other 2LP rings. I'm now going to take the risk, slam it, and turn it into a 3LP ring. And then when they slam it, the 3LP ring resets to just being legendary potential. Now, that's obviously another play to keep people invested in the game and playing the game, is if you reset when you generate the new ring, the new 3LP ring, then the affixes that were on there that they had used for their ring are gone, which means they have to go find another exalted piece of item to slam onto their new 3LP ring, which incentivizes them to use, COF or to go to MG, find a good exalted a 3LP exalt piece to slam on the 3LP red ring, while they go find or create another 3LP red ring to then generate the 4LP ring. And then when they get to the 4LP ring, it resets again, and then they have to go find another exalted piece of gear to generate, to slam the 4LP with, which is the big hunt, right? Because now you have to go actually either craft a good exalted 4LP or find a good exalted 4LP. You can see how a system like this is not something someone's just going to obtain in 24 hours. There's no one's going to be able to do this within 24 hours. No one's probably going to be able to achieve something like this within a system like this within even the first week of a season. This is aspirational but obtainable. And I think that's the big thing that gets kind of lost, is saying like, hey, this red ring has a 4LP opportunity, but you'll be, buried in the ground before it actually ever becomes achievable for you to obtain it, which makes it unrealistic, right? As I explained in what I said, what's the point of chasing perfection in my build if perfection is unobtainable? Whereas something like this is saying like, hey, if I put in the hours, I can actually get a 4LP red ring. Well, okay, let me get to grinding, right? Let me actually put the hours in. So that's kind of the point I've been trying to say is there's ways to do this. Mobile games have figured this out. Mobile games have figured out how to keep player retention by using systems like this. I think it's completely doable within Last Epoch, and I think it should be considered because I think it adds a purpose to continuing the grind for people who want to obtain perfection within their builds and see if they can do it within a 3 and 4 month window for each seasonal cycle. So figured I'd throw this together. I told you I'd be able to better explain it in voice, so have a good one.